You're welcome back. We're on the second leg of the program tonight, and we're being joined by a member of the opposition People's Democratic Party. Senator Okajev is a senator representing Benue Northwest Senatorial District. He joins us live from our Abuja studio. Senator Jev, it's good to have you on the program tonight. Let me begin where I ended with Mr. Mustafa, and it's about, you know, politicking, political parties, the series of elections we have. And, you know, people look around, and it's not just during the APC administration, even during the PDP administrations too. And some might just wonder, what's the essence of, you know, participating in party politics, going to the polls to vote, and they look around and they don't quite see things measuring up. So what do you say to Nigerians who are in that dilemma?
Well, thanks for having me. Well, what I would say to Nigerians is that the alternative to all of that, that is having political parties contest for elections and get into power, the flip side of it is that we have military dictatorship. And we've gone through all of that, and I don't think Nigerians will want to get to that. That is not to say that, you know, if leadership, political leadership is not accountable, you know, Nigerians should be happy just because the alternative is military dictatorship. You know, that is why we have a multi-party democracy. If one party gets into power and, you know, fail to deliver on their promises, you try another political party. You know, we are taking after, or we've taken after American style of democracy, and that is what happens there. They hardly will allow one party to rule for more than 8 years, even though they can go on and on as long as they have the votes. But they don't, because what happens is that after staying so long in power, people begin to take, you know, a lot of things for granted. And so you have several parties in America, but ultimately two major political parties. One would do at the very most 8 years, and then they will vote them out and bring in another one. That is what should be happening here regularly. The PDP that I belong to was in power for 16 years. Now, at a point, it looked like they took a lot of things for granted, and the APC capitalized on that, came in with a lot of propaganda, made a lot of promises, and Nigerians believed them then, and they took over. And, you know, looking back, we've gone from, as they say, frying pan to fire. That is exactly what. So we are getting to election season, and Nigerians will know who has done what, you know. In spite of the fact that towards the end, the PDP, you know, took a lot of things for granted. PDP has delivered on a lot of promises that they gave to Nigerians in the 16 years that they governed. Now, what do we have here? What we have here is a party of propaganda that has made lots and lots of promises. Let's not forget, for instance, that one of the key issues that brought the APC to power was security, or insecurity, if you like. Now, 7 years down the line, we've gone from bad to worse. Okay? So Nigerians are not fools. Nigerians are not fools. They know that trusting that party is not the way to go. That is why some of us were very upset when, for some time, it looked like PDP wasn't getting its act together. But thank God we did with the last national convention, and we have a stable leadership in place. I think Nigerians will begin to see that we are now better prepared to take over from this party that has failed Nigerians.
It's interesting you use that analogy of frying pan to fire, but don't you think Nigerians deserve better than either the frying pan or the fire? They don't deserve to even be in the heat at all. So perhaps there's a need for a third option, because if what we have is a frying pan and a fire, I mean, I don't want to be in any of those.
No, you wouldn't want to be. That was just a manner of speaking. Like I said, before the frying pan, we had a lot of comfort, a lot of promises. I don't want to go back to start to rail out the benefits and the advantages, you know, that the PDP's governance brought to Nigeria. They were there. But like I said, sometimes, I mean, if you go by how this democracy is practiced as well, it is not ideal to allow one party to govern for too long, because definitely with the experience that we've had in this country, you begin to talk about that frying pan. So it's not as if one party is frying pan, the other is is fire. I mean, don't push my analogy too far. That's not what I meant. But what I'm trying to say is now the PDP has recognized the fact that the mistakes were made in the past, and they lost power because of those mistakes. Another party came and went further down the line from those mistakes that were made by the PDP. And the PDP is ready with the new leadership of the party to get its act together. And that's what I meant.
Right. Well, the analogy essentially means from bad to worse. So I was just following through. I wasn't trying to push it too far. But still on that point, really, and this is a question a lot of people ask, especially people that are not, in party politics. I mean, majority of Nigerians don't belong to political parties anyway, so they don't quite understand a lot of things that happen within the parties. When parties see, the state of the nation, for example, insecurity, the economy, and the usual suspects. They wonder, how do you internalize that within your parties? I mean, the PDP governs states in Nigeria. You're represented in the National Assembly. So when you hear about, insecurity, for example, what response do you give? What do you do within parties and, other organs associated?
We've had this debate over and over again about managing security in a country like this with the kind of security architecture that we do have. It is very clear that there's a big limit placed on the governors. Okay, what do I mean? They are called chief security officers, but what do they actually control? Everything is controlled from Abuja. So it is the party that is controlling the power at the center, at the federal, that has the responsibility of providing security to a very large extent. Because sometimes, even for political reasons, if a governor is trying, you see that he's being undermined from Abuja. We've seen that. Okay, so yes, each party has its own manifesto and what it can do when it gets into power. But when we talk about what it can do when it gets to power, I think largely, in terms of security, it has to be at the center. Otherwise, you can only back, but biting may not just be it. That's what I meant.
So aside the governors, I also talked about representation in the National Assembly. Incidentally, you're a member of the National Assembly. And let me just follow up with, perhaps a review of the previous year, the activities of the National Assembly, which you're a part of. How much were you able to change the narrative? How much were you able to contribute to improving the situation, specifically now?
Okay. Yeah, okay. So hardly will you go to the National Assembly on any sitting day that you won't find a motion seeking a resolution to bring attention to the matter of insecurity. Hardly will you find that. But again, like I was giving the example of the governors, there's a limit based on the legal framework that provides for a national legislature like ours. Okay? There's not much you can do other than to bring attention to it and call those responsible to take action. That is especially when you're talking about a motion. A motion is a resolution, and a resolution, like we are always reminded, is a mere advisory. Okay, so but we've been doing that. We've held security summits. Every action that could be taken within the framework of the powers that the National Assembly has been taken. Okay, so it all goes back to this. We have called, the other day we called all the security chiefs, locked ourselves inside the chambers, and asked what exactly is going on and how can we redeem the situation. And we do talk, and we give our recommendation to the executive arm of government that has the responsibility of implementation. And so that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been doing. But like I said, everything goes back to the executive arm of government at the center. They are the ones. And it is based on, like I pointed out, it is based on the promises that, oh, there's insecurity in the land. If we come, we'll do away with that in 2015, that brought this government to power. So Nigerians should be asking them questions. What have they done with those promises that they gave Nigerians?
But isn't the National Assembly meant to be the check for the executive? Are you implying that the executive is more powerful than the legislature in Nigeria?
No, executive is the implementer of what the National Assembly does. We can hold, like I said, we can hold security summits and give advice, but implementation is on them. We can, if they say they need money, we provide the money. And let me tell you, I have said this severally, that any time the budget appropriation bill comes before the National Assembly, one area that is hardly touched, if anything, if it's touched, is to upscale it, is the issue of security. Because we share the view that you have to be secure before any other development. Every other thing ties back to security or insecurity, as the case may be. Because if you go today and commission, say, a rail line, and the following day, the bandits go and destroy it, I mean, you have been taken back to ground zero. Okay, so everything ties back to insecurity. So that is why anything concerning security, when it comes before National Assembly, it is treated expeditiously, from the appropriation bill that comes to every other request that comes in terms of purchase of arms. And we've been given that cooperation from the National Assembly. But it is on the executive arm of government to implement. That is why the ball always rolls back to their court.
All right. So, I mean, the PDP has spoken time and again. Even you have sold your party tonight. So, if you could tell Nigerians what new thing the PDP is bringing on board. I mean, we're aware of the challenges, really, but we need to know the solutions and who might bring those solutions. So, for your party, what is the difference between the PDP of 2015, pre-2015, and the PDP of today?
Kayode, let's face it, the PDP came and brought a lot of goodies to Nigerians until towards the end, like I said, maybe because they stayed too long in power. Like I was saying, left to me, since we are copying the American system of government, we copy the way they do it. We allow one party to stay in government for maybe 8 years. And even if they are trying, you allow the others, because there's this tendency to take people for granted. It's a human nature, okay? So PDP did a lot of good things. It was towards the end that things started to go, if you like, go off-rail because of maybe the long duration that they stayed in power. So it's not as if PDP has nothing to offer to Nigerians. If we have the time, we can begin to go back, and some of the things that we are enjoying today that were brought about by the PDP while they were in governance. Okay, so we already have an idea what can happen, and we have learned the mistakes. That's the point. We have learned the mistakes of why, at a point, we lost the trust of Nigerians, and the PDP, the APC came with the propaganda and took over power, but unfortunately have failed to deliver on the promises that they gave to Nigerians. I think that's the point I'm making.
You also, it sounds like you're saying it's meant to be a turn-by-turn arrangement. So the APC does 8 years. It's only fair to give the PDP 8 years. But I doubt if that should be the criteria.
Point of correction. No,
okay,
point of correction. I'm not saying 8, but I'm not, even in America that I'm citing, it's not every party that comes that has 8 years. And it's not as if a party cannot go beyond 8 years. No, that's not the law. For executive position now, I mean, they have been pegged to 8 years per person. But the party itself can rule as long as they provide the material to govern. But the point I'm making is that there's this human nature that if you are in power for so long, at a point you start to think that somebody wrote some time back that there's a demon in that office. I mean, when you stay there for a long time, you start to feel like a small god. That's the point I'm making. So, left to me, if a party comes and they are governing, after a long time, Nigerians should change and give to the other party. Maybe they will come with fresh ideas. That's just the point. I'm not saying 8 years and then 8 years. If you don't deliver on the promises, after 4 years, you'll be voted out.
And that takes me to my previous question, Senator, because you said maybe they'll come with, fresh ideas. So tell Nigerians, if you may, what new thing the PDP is bringing on board. I mean, we've referenced it time and again, how Nigerians have experienced the PDP. So back to that same question, what new ideas is the PDP bringing on board?
Okay, let's put it this way. There wasn't always insecurity while the PDP was in power. It was towards the end that insecurity started to snowball, okay? Now we know from what has happened now that the best way to handle it is not the way it's being handled now. I mean, every experience you have makes you better if you are ready to move forward. Okay, so as for in terms of infrastructure, PDP has provided a lot of infrastructure. Okay, as for I don't think Nigerians voted out PDP because they didn't provide infrastructure. It was this issue of insecurity that was snowballing, getting out of hand, that was capitalized upon by the APC. So it's not as if there are a whole new set of ideas that the PDP needs to provide better leadership than it provided. It's just the idea, like I said, that, you know, having stayed for long, the cries of Nigerians about this insecurity appeared at that point to be unheeded by the then president, and that's why APC took over. So it's not a whole lot that PDP even needs to do in terms of learning from its mistakes. The mistakes were few towards the end of its 16 years. That's the point. I hope I'm making myself clear, but that's just the point I was making.
Right. Well, Nigerians are listening, and of course, the electorate is wise. They know what to look out for. I mean, the ideas, you know, the solutions and the rest. So the ideas, yes, that's a way to sell your party. But of course, there's also the permutations, the zoning arrangements and the rest. Does it look like your party has a full grasp on how to approach this? Yes, we know where the chairman of your party comes from. But in terms of the presidential and vice presidential candidate, is your party, does it have a handle on this?
Well, if it comes to zoning, I think PDP is the father of zoning arrangement in Nigeria. They are the ones that brought this. It's even in the PDP constitution. Others are just following. So if it comes to that, I don't PDP has no problem at all. And for instance, when Yaradua became the president, and Ahmadu Ali was the chairman of the party, also from the north. But immediately Yaradua became the president. I mean, they did the right thing. It was taken from Ahmadu Ali and given to somebody from the southern part of the country. So for now, the presidency has not been zoned, but the PDP is good at reshuffling itself. So I don't think that will pose a problem at all. The important thing is to get somebody who can deliver on the promises of the party, the manifesto, and what the PDP is capable of doing for Nigeria.
You know, the classic debate really is competence versus zoning. And I mean, this is something we have taken up time and again. But I mean, you can't rule out those considerations, zoning, how, you know, to sell your party as a party that, you know, has the spread sort of that considers all those on board. Would you be supporting the zoning of presidency within your party?
Yeah, I've just said that the PDP is very good at zoning, and that is the appeal that it has to a lot of Nigerians. It has always considered zoning. It has even included zoning in its party party constitution. I think about I don't know about APC now, but at least it was the first political party to enshrine zoning in its own arrangement. So it's not new to PDP. I think that one is the attraction that it has. And personally, yes, to answer directly, I go for zoning. And of course, in zoning, we must not sacrifice competence. You don't just say, oh, you should go here and you give to anybody, so that at the end of the day, they will start saying, oh, this party has not delivered. We have to combine the two. And every part of the country has people who are capable of governing this country. And so the thing is just to look carefully and come up with that kind of person where it will promote zoning and also competence.
So since you support zoning, from what region or sub-region would you want that candidate to come from?
No, that's beyond me for now. You see, I'm just part of the whole. We now have a leadership in place that is focused, okay? Sooner than later, they will put in place a zoning committee that will come up with, I wouldn't want to sit here and air my views and that will, try to undermine what that zoning arrangement will come up with. It's too early, but whatever my party comes up with, I will, as a loyal party man, I will support it.
But Senator, you're entitled to your own opinion. I mean, you're a man of your own. So you can actually, if you have someone in mind, someone that you think, I mean, this person fits the bill, or at least this region, looking at, you know, the successions and all, this region should have it, you should be able to say it.
Well, incidentally, PDP is a party that has a lot of competent people. So I don't want to sit on television and begin to reel out names of who is competent and who is not competent. I think in the fullness of time, when that committee does its job, you can be sure I will follow, I'll line up behind them, knowing that the PDP is a party that lays premium on fairness and, of course, zoning.
So let me ask you this, because this has been the position of a lot of people. And as I said, people are entitled to their own opinions. Yes, the party is supreme, but that doesn't take away the fact that you can have your say, perhaps not have your day. After all, that's democracy. So is this because people don't want to be in the bad books of whoever emerges eventually, so you try to keep you know, your thoughts, your ideas to yourself? Why does it seem like people are keeping that close to their chest?
Kyle, at the risk of sounding immodest, I'm a high-ranking member of the PDP, and I wouldn't want to start, or even not encourage anybody to start giving divergent views on where it should go and where it should not go, to start giving the impression that PDP is in crisis. I think that is the danger of doing that. Maybe some other person whose views may not be that weighty when it comes to such matters can sit at a beer parlor or any other place and make their views known. But if high-ranking members of the party begin to make their views known, the impression will be created that, oh, they are fighting amongst themselves, and I think it's not wise to start heading in that direction.
Right. So on a final note, Senator, let's focus on the leadership question now. What sort of leadership is the PDP planning to provide for Nigerians? Well,
PDP, first of all, we now have leadership of the party that is very, very focused. I think since we used to hear about crisis in the party, you know, and I was very loud, even on this platform, to condemning what was then happening within the PDP. And since we had the national convention, I don't think we've been hearing about crisis within the party again, because Nigerians, first, the party membership of the PDP believes in the current leadership of the party. And because of the pedigree of the chairman and other members of the working committee. And so they are building and rebuilding to ensure that they present the party as a united party capable of leading us into 2023 election. I think that is what should be the primary consideration of members of the party and the expectations of Nigerians too. Because I know a lot of people will, are you people serious? You want to replace the APC and you are not, you are fighting amongst them. So that used to be the argument. It's no longer the argument now. Rather, it's the APC that is having parallel congresses everywhere when they held their congresses. Half of the states were having parallel congresses, and they are now talking about the crisis. The byline in the interview that you had before mine was saying, wrote internal crisis, APC internal crisis. You won't write that about the PDP again, because we are now focused on ensuring that 2023 is ours for the taking.
Well, that's not to say that your party has not had its fair share as well, but we have to anchor at this point. Senator Okajev, Senator representing Benue Northwest in the 9th Assembly. It's been great talking to you, Senator. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
It's a pleasure being with you. Mm-hmm.
So, well, we're still scratching the surface. It's still a long time up until the 2023 general elections. I will ensure to focus on the major issues, leadership, solutions, and ideas to make Nigeria better. But that's our package for tonight, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikile. Good night.